everybody, and welcome to another edition of the GD Report. I am D.
And I'm G.
Great to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well, staying safe. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight because definitely some needs out there. We've still got about half the population that needs to get vaccinated. So,
Yep.
G-Man, let's keep things rolling. Last week we got way off on some tangents, both of our faults. Nobody to blame, but we went for about an hour. So let's keep it moving today. What's our first topic?
COVID. Speaking of shots.
Here we go. That's right. Speaking of shot in the arm. So what's the latest?
Well, the latest is that 50, like you said, 50% of the population still isn't vaxxed, and 95% of the cases are people that are not vaxxed. So, you people that aren't getting vaccinated, you're kind of holding up the train. Biden just announced today, no, maybe it was yesterday, that he's going to require all federal workers to get vaccinated, or you have to wear a mask continuously and you have to get regularly tested. So he's kind of putting the holding their feet to the fire to get all federal employees. That includes armed forces, people in the FBI, CIA, and those lawmakers up on Capitol Hill.
Well, G-Man, what do you think the big holdup is on getting vaccinated? Why are these people resisting it?
Well, I think they were resisting it because Trump told them not to. Trump told them not to get the shot, and so they're not getting the shot.
Well, I thought he told people to get the shot.
Well, he did, but he said it in a way that told people not to get it.
Yeah, it's just a blatant example of over politicizing an issue that doesn't need to be politicized.
Right.
The whole thing with COVID's been politicized when it shouldn't have been. And
Yep.
I'm not going to be Joe Scarborough and say both sides did it, because it's not both sides. It's one side. It's the Republican Party that has first of all, they said COVID wasn't as bad as everybody thought. It's nothing worse than the flu. And then, oh my God, when we had lockdowns, we shouldn't be locked down. When
Right.
we had mask mandates, we shouldn't have mask mandates. Now I saw the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson's, going back to the state legislature trying to get them to overturn the law that they passed, saying that schools could not have mask mandates because children under 12 still are not eligible for the vaccine.
Right.
And there's lots of cases of those kids in that age group catching the Delta variant of COVID. And in some cases dying. And so, and the schools by law now in Arkansas cannot have a mask mandate because they thought, oh, we're going to fight for freedom and just, outlaw this stuff, instead of saying, you know what, we're going to leave it up to the local schools and local municipalities and local businesses to make their own decisions. It's funny to me, the party of small government is being such an overreaching authoritarian government in these aspects.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to throw in too that in critical condition is in an undisclosed hospital is Reverend Billy Graham's grandson, Jonathan Lotz. So we want to keep him in our prayers and everybody else who gets this deadly disease. But
it's still out there. It's still, and you know what? People are saying, it's unproven. It's this, it's that, it's the other. The science is overwhelmingly in favor of getting the vaccine.
Yep.
And there's requirements all through society that you have to have shots and shot records. If you want to travel internationally, a lot of countries require you to have, your yellow fever shot, or they require you to have a measles or hepatitis vaccine. Schools require kids to enroll to show proof of vaccination. So it's going to come down to that, and people are going to have to start using vaccine passports. And then when all the people complain about that, it's going to be the same people who didn't want to wear masks, the same people who don't want to get vaccinated, that are going to get left out in the cold, because eventually it's going to be, you can't go to an SEC football game if you don't have proof of vaccine.
Right.
You can't fly if you can't prove that you've been vaccinated. It's going to come down to that because people are not voluntarily getting it done.
Yep. True that. So, suck it up, go get your shots, and let's get on down the road and put this thing behind us. So, speaking of behind us, we're going to look back a little bit to January of this year on our next topic. We're going to talk about the 1-6 Commission. So, what do you hear on that, D?
Yeah, to think about who I was there, I saw the wheels turning to figure out which letter to choose. The 1-6 Select Committee on the House of Representatives, they had their first hearing this week, and it was powerful. I hope everybody got a chance to see it. If you didn't, go hit up YouTube. They had 5 of the officers who were involved, and many of them that were injured. Officer Fanone was one of the ones who was drug into the crowd, beaten with flagged poles that had U.S. flags and Trump flags on it, to the point that he eventually had a heart attack while he was being beaten. Suffered lots of damage. The officer, and I can't remember his name, that was getting crushed by the mob in the doorway. He testified as well. And then one of the officers, African American, testified the fact that he was called the N-word multiple times.
Yeah, because he voted for Biden.
Yeah, because they said nobody voted for Biden, and he said I did, and it was not to make a political statement. It was just to say, hey, there's lots of people who voted for Biden. There's lots of people who voted for Trump. Doesn't mean you get the chance just because your guy lost to storm our Capitol. And the commission, McCarthy's withdrawn all of his nominees because he couldn't get 2 of the pro-insurrectionists on the committee. And I thought Pelosi was masterful in how she handled it. She's appointed Adam Kinzinger now, along with Liz Cheney, and you've got 2 Republican members. And it was a professional committee here. There wasn't a lot of bomb throwing. There wasn't a lot of grandstanding. It was heartfelt, and it proved that this committee is going to get to the heart of what happened and when it happened. The interesting thing is going to be if people from the executive branch are called on to testify, or members of Congress, McCarthy or Jordan, who Jim Jordan admitted this week on Fox News that he did talk to Trump that day. It's the first time he admitted it. What they'll do if they try to defy the subpoenas? Will there be a fast track? Will it drag on for 2 years like Don McGahn?
Right.
But it's to their detriment, to be honest, if it drags on.
Well, I mean, there's one of the problems with any congressional investigation is, at least in my mind, is they don't really have a mechanism for compelling you to testify. So out in the real world, a court can issue a summons for your arrest, and the police will go arrest you and bring you into court. But as far as I know, the Capitol Police aren't empowered with that.
Well, they can find you in contempt of Congress, and they could arrest you and compel you to testify or drag you to the committee hearing. That's never been done before. So the question is, because the next time Republicans are in power, what will they do with that kind of power if it happens? But you know what? I think we got to get to the bottom of what happened. The American people deserve to know which Congress people were coordinating in advance. Representative Mo Brooks from Alabama, who's also a candidate for Senate now, spoke at the rally that day. He gave a statement today that he knew in advance that there was going to be violence, or there was potential for violence. Because of that, he didn't sleep in his condo that he normally stays at, slept in his office. And also, when he gave the speech about it's time for Americans to start kicking some ass up on stage at that rally, he was also wearing body armor underneath his windbreaker.
Right.
So they knew there was going to be violence. They knew it was going to happen. They knew they were ginning this up to get people worked up to do something. And then by all accounts, as former president, again, glory be for me to get to say former president, Donald Trump sat in the dining room off the Oval Office with his bank of TVs. They said he was giddy. He was happy. Yep. He was excited that people were storming the Capitol for him.
Yep.
So we'll see. I'm not sure when the next hearing is going to be or who they're going to call next. But I'd love to see subpoenas for Kevin McCarthy. I'd love to see subpoenas for Jim Jordan. Republicans are saying that Nancy Pelosi needs to take the blame for this. And
blame.
I think because she didn't secure the Capitol enough. First of all, she's not in charge of that. But I think they better be careful what they wish for, because I could see her going to testify before the committee, and she would be a rock star, just like Hillary Clinton was during the Benghazi trial, when she
Right.
testified for like 12 hours without any attorney, and just batted away Trey Gowdy like an annoying fly.
Right. You know, one of the winners of this whole thing, I think, is Liz Cheney, because she's released a statement that says country over party, you know, imploring the Republicans to do the right thing. And I just think that she's looking better and better to the voters of Wyoming. So,
well, I think when the party eventually burns down, which it will, and the Trump element burns down, I think Liz Cheney's in commanding shape to be a leader in what's left of the Republican Party.
yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of burning down, let's move on to the great state of Texas. And an interesting thing happened down there. So Mr. Trump endorsed a candidate, and Mr. Trump has said that his endorsement is worth more than anybody else's endorsement and all of them combined. And so turns out the voters in the state of Texas didn't really think so. So Jake Ellzey won this race over let's see if I can figure out who the guy's name is.
It was a woman,
Christine. Susan Wright.
Right, yeah.
The widow of the late U.S. Representative Ron White. So she was running to keep his seat in the family. I have to go look, but that district might be my old district when I lived in Texas. So anyway, Ellzey got more than 53% of the vote in the Texas 6th. So I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I think if you look at what's going on, Trump is kind of losing some of the steam. His rallies haven't attracted that many people. He's certainly not going to win the Lisa Murkowski race, even though he would love to.
Well, and Ellzey did not run. He wasn't like a George P. Bush candidate who, even though Trump endorsed somebody else, he still kissed Trump's hiney.
Right.
Ellzey said, I'm a Reagan Republican. I want to get back to being able to work with the other side. And so it was a clear repudiation of Donald Trump. Clear repudiation. And so it's got to make people wonder in the Beltway, because, I mean, other than Cheney and Kinzinger and maybe a handful of others who voted for impeachment, everybody else has pretty much said all in on Trump, put all their bet on Trump. And there could be, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of time between now and next year. There could be some primaries where the big push was, oh, Trump's going to primary all these people. There could be some moderates primary some of these Trumpians.
Yeah. Well, talk about screwing yourself. George Bush. No, yes, George P. Bush, right?
George P. Bush. That's why I brought him up.
Yeah. So he's Jeb's son. So first of all, Trump trashed Jeb in the 2016 primary and eventually forced him out of the race. And then here's Jeb's son, basically, kissing Donald all over.
Yeah.
Wanting to get his endorsement. What does Trump do? He comes out and endorses Ken Paxton. So Bush is running against Paxton for Texas AG, or at least he wants to. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, he's all over Trump, and then Trump comes out and endorses Paxton, mainly because Paxton led the charge after the election to get the results overturned and, trying to get every case into court.
Yeah. And I'll just say this too. Trump didn't just, it's bad enough he didn't just dunk on Jeb and call him low energy Jeb. He put down George P.'s grandfather.
Yep.
H.W. Bush. He put down George P.'s uncle, George W. Bush. He made nasty comments about Barbara Bush as well, the matriarch of the family. I mean, George P. Bush, if I felt like he was the strong candidate for run for anything, I would say stunt double for Ted Cruz.
Right.
Because it's a Ted Cruz model. Hey, I don't care how much you insult me or my family. I'm still going to kiss up to you because it might help me. At what point do you have some shame and you say, you know what? I don't care. It's bigger than an office. You're not going to put my family down. You're not going to insult our family name and insult all my family in order for this to happen. It's not going to happen.
Right.
George P. Bush even sold koozies in his campaign store that said Trump's favorite Bush.
Right.
Because that's what he called them. So yeah, absolutely. So great state of Texas. We'll see what happens in some of those primaries. And I like the fact that they're trying to restrict the vote after they won pretty much all the races in Texas.
Right.
They want to overturn those. And
well, they're afraid that by 2024 it's going to go blue. That's what they're afraid of.
Yeah, and Greg Abbott's scared that Beto is going to run against him. So
yeah, well, it's kind of looking like he is.
So he wants every advantage he can get. So
yeah, well, the things that he's doing now, I don't think are really going to give him an advantage because from what I'm seeing, it's just ticking people off. But we'll see in the midterms how it goes, and then in the general in 2024. So
yeah. All right, so let's. You want to head up to the slopes of Utah?
No, Wyoming.
Wyoming, exactly. I don't know why I was thinking Utah. I was thinking Utah because Ron DeSantis is there today.
Right.
But up in Wyoming, the great prairie grasslands.
Yep.
Tell us what's happened there.
Well, retired Senator Mike Enzi, who replaced one of my favorite senators, Alan Simpson, when he retired, just died. He was 77 years old, and he actually died from a bicycle accident. He somehow fell and broke his neck and several ribs. Everything I've read doesn't say another vehicle was involved. He actually was flown to Colorado. They didn't say which hospital, but I'm pretty sure it's St. Anthony's, which is right here close to me. They're a level 1 trauma center. And he was, to me, he was the last of the compromising senators. So he had an 80-20 rule where he called on colleagues to focus on the 80% of an issue where they could agree and discard the 20% where they didn't. And in his farewell address, he told the Senate that nothing gets done when we're just telling each other how wrong we are, which is right where we are today. I mean, that's all they're doing is telling each other how wrong they are, and nobody wants to vote for each other's legislation. And so to me, he was one of the good guys. So trying to get stuff done.
And Liz, the last time he ran, I think Liz Cheney was considering a challenge to him.
Yes, she was.
From the right. And then when he didn't run for re-election this time, I was kind of surprised she didn't run.
Right.
But
Cynthia Loomis ran in that race and replaced him. She won the race. So, but I noticed, in all the stories I read about him, Liz Cheney was quoted in each and every one. So I'm telling you, she's a formidable foe up there in Wyoming. And I don't think Trump's primary challenge is going to beat her. But we'll see.
It will be interesting. All right.
Yep. So we're going to head back to
rest in peace, Senator
Enzi.
Senator Enzi.
So we're going to head back to Washington, and we're going to talk about a case that has far-reaching implications. So the governors of 12 states have asked the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. There's a case coming up out of Mississippi, I believe. Just double check that. Well, first, let me tell you that governors from Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, that's a bit of a shock, Missouri, Montana, Oklahoma, and Texas joined with South Carolina in signing this brief. In the brief, they asked the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade and let states determine whether they want to have abortion or not. They say that's the fairest way of dealing with the issue. The governors argued, saying the court was invading areas of the law that should be reserved for the states. We'll see. I mean, this is a pretty big case that's going on right now, and so the next term of the Supreme Court. Hang on, my ESPN app is going off. But yeah, I mean, it looks more and more likely that Roe is going to get overturned.
Well, we'll definitely see. What I find it a bit, it's not shocking I'm going to say this, but I find it a bit disingenuous from a standpoint that for years we've heard that, oh, it's not about overturning abortion. It's just about, states being able to have their own way. Roe shouldn't be overturned. And then in the amicus that Mississippi filed, they said, we want you just to overturn it completely.
Right. Yep.
So I wonder if the people who are against the vaccine and say it's their body, it should be their choice. I wonder what their argument's going to be on the abortion issue. Just wondering.
Well, and I think they ought to poll those Supreme Court justices and ask them if they've ever had or paid for an abortion.
Yep.
That's what I would do. That's where I would start. I would say, Justice Thomas, have you ever paid for an abortion? I think we might be shocked by the answers.
Yeah. Well, it's that's the thing is I heard it said one time that in the abortion debate, the thing that gets lost the most is the fact that they never limit abortions for everybody. That even in the pre-Roe days, people with means and the rich still had abortions.
Oh yeah, because like Colorado, we're never going to overturn it. I mean, the right has tried like probably 10 times since I've been here to get an abortion ban, to have a personhood amendment. And every time they fail, and they fail miserably with over 60% of the vote.
So what happens is if Utah outlaws it, then people who are rich in Utah that want to have one and want their daughter to have one, they'll just come to Colorado.
Yep. Same thing.
They have the money to be able to do it, and
Yep.
private pay, and nobody knows the better of it. And
Yep.
And so it's a matter of once again, poor people being burdened. And it's funny, the same people who are fighting so hard for this abortion ban and in these states are the same people that don't want a child tax credit.
Yep.
To help people that have children raise those children and get those children out of poverty so they can have clothes to eat, they can have food to eat. So that they want to be against the infrastructure amendment where they don't want people to have, government provided or subsidized broadband so that they can study at home when there's a pandemic. Yep. Or even just have the value of having an internet connection. An internet connection today, it's even bigger than what I'm going to compare it to, but it's the modern day equivalent of being able to have access to a set of encyclopedias at home. When
absolutely
pre-internet days, you could do your research papers. That was a luxury to have those.
Yep.
To be able to have that, and it's the same thing, but it opens up so much more when people have open access to the internet. But people, they want to fight for the fetus until it's born, and then once it's born, they don't want to do anything to support it.
Yep. So we'll see how that plays out. The new term starts in October, and this will be one of the hot cases that we'll follow and comment on as the Supreme Court hears oral arguments, and then their vote comes out. So we want to watch that. And speaking of infrastructure, that brings us to our final topic. So Tell us the latest, D. What's going on with infrastructure?
Well, obviously, there's two infrastructure bills. There's the quote unquote bipartisan hard infrastructure bill, which is focused on roads, bridges, highways. I'm sure there's quite a bit of money for West Virginia in that one
Right.
as well. But I think that also includes broadband, a little bit of things for some electric cars and things like that. I believe it's $1.2 trillion is
Right.
the total price tag on that. Some of it is offset by COVID dollars that haven't been spent. There's some money from some other areas being reallocated. But there's going to be between 700 and 800 billion of brand new spending on our infrastructure in our country. There's been a bipartisan group that has been working on this. They've reached an agreement. They took a cloture vote. It was either yesterday or Monday, and it passed with 67 votes. So
Right.
7 votes to spare. 17 Republicans voted for the bill, including Moscow Mitch McConnell.
Right.
So now the bill is going through final markup, and Senator Schumer, Majority Leader, says that if they have to hold over for the Labor Day break, they'll hold over because they want to get this passed. There's some fissures, though. Once it gets to if it passes the Senate, it may have trouble in the House, and it may not be the Republicans this time. It might be the progressives on the Democratic side, because they still want to see, okay, we're going to pass this smaller bill. What about the 3.5 human infrastructure bill that includes things for childcare, home care, climate change, a lot of agendas that they're talking about passing through reconciliation? They want to see that, at least have that brought to the floor, or some guarantees that they will. Kirsten Sinema, who I'm not a big fan of hers already, but she's also a horrible poker player, because she's already said she doesn't agree with the $3.5 million price tag. She thinks that's too much. And so that's causing progressives on the House side to say, well, maybe we shouldn't vote for this bipartisan bill. Maybe we should tank it. And so it remains to be seen if it'll pass. Trump has been lobbying hard against it, saying that it's a disaster for Republicans if they vote for this. They shouldn't do it. And it boils down to he doesn't want Biden to have a win.
Yeah, because it's going to kick, the economy is already going at the best clip since 2003. I just read that. Yeah. And, the infrastructure bill and the budget bill are only going to make it easier for people to go back to work, and with, good paying jobs. And so, yeah, they don't want this economy rolling along, because, the economy is, and the COVID response is what killed Trump in the 2020 election. And so they're afraid that if it's rolling and everybody's happy, then the Republicans will suffer in 2022 and 2024.
Right. But it's going to be pretty hard for those Republicans to resist that kind of money going to their home states.
Yep. Well, like we've said before, the Republicans in the hinterlands, they love what Biden's doing. The Republicans in DC, they hate it.
Yeah.
Because they know it's going to cost them, it's going to cost them seats in Congress. They don't want to lose those seats. They don't want to fall any further behind the 8 ball than they are right now.
Absolutely. So remains to be seen, but I've learned that you don't bet against Nancy Pelosi to get things done, and so I've put a pretty strong faith that she's going to figure out a way to get both bills through the House if Schumer can hold all 50 Democrats together.
Well, that's the $64 million question, right? Can he do it? I mean, it looks like he could probably bring Joe Manchin on, but because he's indicated that, he'll probably vote for it. But Kristen Sinema, she's another story altogether.
And nobody can really figure her out, because before she ran as a Democrat, she was a member of the Green Party. She ran as a progressive.
Right.
And now she's, doing her thumbs down and curtsy. I think she's found a way to try to exude some power.
Yeah.
Now the question is, whenever she's up, is she going to be able to survive a Democratic primary?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you wonder if the Democrats will take that page out of the Republican handbook, but you can't you can't straddle the fence really and hope to get anything done.
Reminds me a lot of Joe Lieberman
Yes.
back when he was a senator, and they used to call him Bush's favorite senator.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I met him once when he came through Tulsa.
Yeah.
When I was working at K4. So
yeah, I met him in Oklahoma City one time as well.
yeah, I was not impressed.
I wasn't either. That's something else we have in common.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that pretty much wraps us up today. Right on the dot.
Right.
We were very good today. We didn't ramble. I hope everybody does well, and pay attention to what's happening, because the stories are moving fast. COVID, the variants are moving fast. Get the vaccine. If you're in a mixed company, you're not sure who you're with, you're indoors, wear a mask, be safe.
Yep.
It's not going to hurt you to wear a mask. It hurts you a lot more to have to wear a ventilator.
Absolutely. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.